for me, I think the whole issue of decolonization has more urgency in the social sciences, subjects like history, art, literature, whatever, where you can really see strong colonial influences. In the mathematical sciences and in STEM subjects in general, my feeling is that anti-racism is more of a burning, important issue. So I'm going to substitute that anti-racism into that question and say, okay, well, there's two levels at which anti-racism, racism features. One is at the level of structural racism. You look at sort of staffing and the number of people of color, particularly at senior staff levels within university. You look at university entrance and the difficulty it is for people of color to get into university. You look at racism now being reported in lecture halls, actually in student halls and things like that. And these are serious structural issues which do not affect the mathematical sciences alone, but affect them as well as everybody else. So I'm not going to go into that in more detail, but I wanted to flag up that level, I think, is probably the most important level to engage with anti-racism. So the second level is the level of curriculum. And again, I'm going to take mathematical sciences as a sort of a broad area. It's not just sort of pure mathematics or even applied mathematics, but computer science, statistics, data modeling, things like this, artificial intelligence, which is the big one at the moment. So, when I first started thinking about this, I thought, well, how can an equation be biased? And an equation is an equation. How can it have racism in it? And if you look deeper, these algorithms are not just biased and even racist, but have serious consequences on people's lives. So I want to give you one example. In January 2020, Robert Julian Borchak Williams was handcuffed on his driveway in front of his wife and children, taken off to prison, and on suspicion of stealing 5 watches from a store in Detroit. Now, this suspicion, and he was taken to a detention center, kept there overnight and kept for 30 hours. And this was all done on the basis of a face recognition algorithm alone. And it's the first time that we know of, that at least that's been reported, that somebody has been arrested in plain daylight and put into detention for 30 hours on the basis of the prediction of an algorithm alone. Now, he had his DNA taken, he was fingerprinted, he was questioned, and all of this. And 2 weeks later, he had to go and appear in court, and of course the case was dropped because there wasn't any evidence. And you probably already guessed, but of course, Mr. Williams was black, right? And sadly, that's not surprising. So how did this happen? How did this come about? And there's lots in the press about racism and algorithms. And if you just do a Google search on racist algorithms or racist artificial intelligence, you'll find oodles of stuff. So just this one example, how did it come about? Well, modern algorithms used in anger and industry and by the police and wherever else, everywhere else, many of them are based on artificial intelligence. Neural nets, you may have heard of. These things are trained on data. And the algorithm is only as good as the data. And it turns out in these so what happened in the store was that they had a grainy CCTV image of the person who did the robbery. And that came up with a positive match, in inverted commas, with Mr. Williams. Now, there are more white faces that these algorithms are trained on than black faces. So they do a better job of recognizing white faces than they do of black faces. This is well reported in the press and in academic journals.